Guzman, a former member of Rupert Murdoch's management team, has claimed she was told by a higher-up that the purpose of Murdoch's money-hemorrhaging newspaper, the New York Post, was to, quote, destroy Barack Obama. Our fourth story, that is part of a former editor's full-spectrum lawsuit against the paper after she was dismissed after she had complained about a racist cartoon the Post ran about Obama last winter. Former associate editor Sandra Guzman is suing, claiming racism and sexism are also rampant inside the Post, led and protected by Murdoch's top editors. Guzman says she was fired after her objection to this cartoon, which depicted the president as an escaped chimpanzee shot dead by white policemen. When that became public, her criticism capping the history of her complaints about racism and sexism there. The Post says Guzman was terminated because her section had been canceled. Her suit has no merit, the paper says, and the charges are groundless. What charges? Take editor-in-chief Col Allan, alleged to have shown a picture of a man displaying his genitalia to 4 female employees, smirking when they objected, the Post ignoring complaints about that. Allan alleged to have rubbed himself against the female employee, making sexual remarks about her breasts. Allan saying the majority of people protesting his chimp cartoon were uneducated, that Guzman was listening to Al Sharpton. Then there was the senior editor who offered a copy assistant a reporting job in return for oral sex, the columnist who sang West Side Story songs at Ms. Guzman, the Post policy to use white female models for its section covers, and the News Corp senior vice president who routinely stared at female employees' breasts and buttocks while licking his lips, repeatedly called Guzman sexy, as well as, this is what passes for repartee there, cha-cha number 1. When Ms. Guzman complained, Col Allan screamed at her. When she interviewed baseball's Pedro Martinez, Allan asked whether he had a gun or a machete. To the paper's credit, it never ran a planned cartoon, it turns out, that depicted Jews as sewer rats. But despite Murdoch's own apology for that chimp cartoon, Guzman says the Washington bureau chief of the Post, Charles Hurt, told her that the paper's goal, quote, is to destroy Barack Obama. We don't want him to succeed. With us tonight, as promised, Ms. Guzman's attorney, Ken Thompson, a former federal prosecutor. Thanks for coming in tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here, Chief.
I'll confess to being far less concerned with or surprised by the sexual or the racial allegations. Not that they don't matter, but what surprises me in there is that quote from the Washington bureau chief about destroying Obama. That seems to me to matter the most journalistically, even politically or culturally, if you will. To your knowledge, was that an isolated incident?
No, it was not an isolated incident. It was actually a part of a pattern practice at the Post and its parent company, News Corporation, to basically try to undermine and destroy the first black president of the United States of America. And the way you can see that is, not only did Charles Hurt make that comment to Ms. Guzman, but they ran this very offensive, dangerous cartoon depicting our sitting president as a dead chimpanzee, knowing full well the history in this country of black people being portrayed as gorillas, apes, and monkeys. And they did it, Keith, with full knowledge that it was offensive. Jesse Angelo, the white managing director at the Post, told people that he knew that the cartoon was offensive before they published it. And you just alluded to the fact that Col Allan said that the people who are protesting are uneducated. No, he said something more racist than that. He said the majority of the folks outside who were protesting this despicable cartoon were minorities, and the majority of them are uneducated.
This raises, though, a point about this place and what is always looked for in a lawsuit of this case, corroboration in some way, some witness testimony that will back up the claim. To what degree is the Post, based on your development of this case, a white boys club, a frat house kind of thing, and thus is there likelihood to be corroboration of Ms. Guzman's claims, whether the sexual, racial ones or the political ones?
First of all, Keith, if you look at the diversity we have in this great city of ours here, and then you look at the newsroom at the Post, they have one black person as the editor. The vast majority of the editors at the Post are white males. How is that possible? And when you have white males who will allow their employees of color to be denigrated, we laid it out in the complaint, and you ask about corroboration, we certainly will be able to corroborate Ms. Guzman. You have to understand, they fired her on September 29th. We have been preparing this lawsuit. It is a very important lawsuit because Sandra Guzman must succeed. Because if she succeeds, other women and people of color who currently work for the Post will also succeed. So yes, I will call witnesses who will corroborate her testimony, and they've already helped me, Keith, get this far.
Rupert Murdoch himself is not a defendant in this case. Is there a reason for that? Does it suggest that he is somehow not responsible for what goes on at the New York Post?
Keith, he's not an individual defendant yet. As you know, everything rises and falls on leadership. You have Col Allan, who Mr. Murdoch brought over from Australia in 2001 and put him as the head of the newsroom, showing an offensive picture where man's genitalia was hanging out and doing other offensive things to women and people of color. Now, how could that be? He must have had comfort to believe that his boss, the chairman of News Corp, would find that that was okay. So we filed the lawsuit yesterday based on what we had to date. But Rupert Murdoch is certainly responsible for this racist and sexist environment. So stay tuned about whether he will be able to avoid this lawsuit.
Ken Thompson, the attorney for the ex-New York Post associate editor Sandra Guzman in that suit against the paper. Again, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.